Hey guys, today I'm going to give you a beginner's tutorial on my all-time favorite software, Final Cut Pro. If I could marry Final Cut Pro, I probably would. Now, Final Cut Pro is an Apple product, so you do need to be on a Mac to use it. But what I love about Final Cut Pro is that it's so simplistic if you're just a beginner, but it actually gets very advanced if you're more experienced. So it really works for such a huge range of people. Honestly, if you're really thinking about growing your YouTube channel, you want to make videos for a client, you want to make videos for your own business, I would really recommend looking at Final Cut Pro. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a very basic tutorial about how to cut videos together in Final Cut Pro. As always, you're going to be seeing what I see on my computer screen. I'm going to zoom way in close so you can really see what I'm doing on my screen. You really understand how this software works. Now, if you watch this video and you feel like you learned everything you can from it, I am launching a course on my website called Final Cut Rockstar. This is such an amazing course because what I do is I give you all of the video and graphic elements that we're going to use in the video we create in that course, and then we're going to actually build it together step by step. You are not going to believe the advanced techniques that you're going to learn in this course, but it really starts out at the very beginning for a beginner. So if you like what you see today in Final Cut and you want to learn more, head on over to JennJager.com, check out Final Cut Rockstar. So now let's jump on over to my computer and I'll show you how to use Final Cut. So here is your blank Final Cut screen, and I'm going to start importing assets. Assets would be like videos, graphics, music, anything like that into Final Cut so you can see how they come in and how the whole screen lays out. So you want to head on over to File. I'm going to hit New, and you want to hit Library. Now in Final Cut, a library is like your whole project, and what that means is that's the actual file that's going to live on your computer, and you can call it whatever you want. The way I personally organize my libraries is that each client has its own library, and then within that library are all of the different projects I've worked on for them. That's the way I do it, but you can organize it however you want. You can have a library for every single video you create. You can have a library for all of your YouTube videos. So however you want to work it, that's how you can organize it. So what we want to do is give our library an appropriate title. So I'm going to call this Final Cut Tutorial. So now you can see in the top left of the screen, this is our library's sidebar. So this shows me that I've got my library here. That's this icon, Final Cut Tutorial. And underneath I have what are called events, or really you could just call them subfolders. So what I want to do is select this folder with it defaults to today's date. And I'm going to hit this button here that says Import Media. And what it's going to do is open up my files. I'm going to open up this file that says Final Cut Pro Tutorial, and I'm going to import all of this media that I'm going to need for this project. And so now over here, you can see in this is called the event browser. These are all of the shots that I have brought in, and you can see like thumbnails so I can preview what each shot is. Now you see this one here is much bigger than the rest. That's because this is actually a longer clip. And what I can do here is if you go on over to this film strip and you see this little like stopwatch here, if I drag up and down this slide bar, it actually shows me more of my clips so I can see them more frame by frame in depth. I like to have all of them be about the same size, so they're just quick thumbnails so I can easily know what each shot is, and then if I need more detail, I can always zoom back in. So now let's draw our attention to the bottom of the screen, New Project. We're going to hit that, and we're going to title this, I'm going to title this again, Final Cut Tutorial Sample. And here's where we make some pretty big decisions about the properties of our project. I edit typically in 4K, but I have a very powerful computer. You might not be able to do that, but if you click this drop down, you can see all the different file formats that you can edit in. Most of you will probably be in 1080p, which is like typical HD video. And then here's your resolutions. The resolution will obviously change depending on your initial format that you've selected here. And then here's your frame rate. So your frame rate's typically 24 or 30 frames per second. Most people nowadays, are doing a lot in 24 frames. So here's my settings. I'm going to hit OK. Now let's look at the bottom of the screen. This is what's called our timeline, and there's nothing in it yet, but this is where we're going to lay out all of our clips in a sequence that's going to build our video. Over here in this blank screen here is kind of a preview window. So when I click on the different thumbnails in my event browser, I can preview what is in each shot. And then also as I drop stuff into my timeline, you'll see that I can view what's going on in my timeline in this same window as well. Okay, now let's start building our video. As a professional editor, 98% of the time, you're going to want to start with the audio components of your project. So that could be any like on-camera sound bites or interviews. That could be any voiceover that you've written. Anything like that is probably going to be the first elements you want to work with, because that's going to dictate everything else in your video. It's going to dictate how long your video is. It's going to dictate what support visuals you're going to need to kind of tell your story. So we're going to focus right now on these sound bites. So if I want to listen to what this soundbite says, I'm going to click to the beginning of the video. I'm going to zoom in real tight here so you can see that little white line. As I click out throughout my video, I get this little white line. I'm going to cue it up so the white line's at the very beginning of this clip. And I'm going to hit the space bar, and that's going to play the soundbite for me so I can hear what it says.
We're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell.
Okay, that's where we want to start. So now
we're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell. To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking forward to.
Okay, so I only want the beginning of this soundbite. So you see how it's got this yellow highlight around it? That means I've selected this soundbite. If I click this clip, I get the yellow highlight here. Let's go back to the soundbite. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover my cursor over the edge of this yellow highlight, and watch this. I'm going to hold down my mouse and I'm going to drag. And so now I've selected just this part of the soundbite.
We're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell.
To stop playing it, I hit the space bar again. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see how I've got the little hand cursor. So when I move my cursor away from the clip, it's just an arrow. When I move it back, it's a hand. I'm going to hold down my mouse button and drop it onto the timeline. So there we go. We've dropped our first clip onto the timeline. Now, if I want to see what that looks like, I'm going to click at the top of the timeline here. See this red line? It's called my playhead. I'm going to grab it, hold down my mouse button, slide it to the front of the clip, and I'm going to hit the space bar.
We're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell.
Great. Okay, so we've laid in our first soundbite. Let's lay in some more and really build that story together. All right, so I want the rest of this soundbite here. Let's listen.
To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking forward to.
Okay, so I want the rest of that soundbite. So I'm going to grab this yellow highlight and I'm going to select all this. And then again, I'm going to get that hand and I'm going to drag it in. Now let's listen to this soundbite.
Because the end user had such a heavy infrastructure in low voltage, AV, and even security, it took a lot of work for Amicon to coordinate with those owner vendors and make sure that the end result, the owner got everything that they wanted, that we had the infrastructure in place, all the wiring, all the devices, that their inspections fell in line with our schedule, and all that coordination was done seamlessly.
Okay, I want that entire soundbite. So what I'm going to do is grab the whole clip and I'm going to drop it into the timeline. Now I'm going to zoom in on my timeline so we're really focused on these clips. And here we go. Here's our whole timeline. But what I want to do is I've got way more like cool they're called B-roll shots. So B-roll is like any of the action shots, so the pretty shots of the buildings in this case, pretty shots of different rooms and different spaces. I know I have so much more of that content than I have sound bites. So what I want to do is create some space between my sound bites so that I can show more of those pretty shots in my finished video. Now, if I want to create some space between these sound bites, let me show you what happens. If I drag this clip and try to drag it lower down the timeline, watch, it snaps back. Final Cut has what's called a magnetic timeline, which means that all of the elements will automatically just kind of stick together in your timeline, but you don't have to have that. Let me show you how to change that. So what we're going to do is focus our attention here on this little button. See this arrow? I'm going to hit the drop down menu, and now I have different like tools, most of which we're not going to worry about today. So the default is select, and that's typically what you do want to work with. But in this case, I want to move on down to position. I'm going to select that. See, now my cursor looks a little different. And now what I can do is I can slide this soundbite down, and I've created a dead space. Do you see this dead space? So let me just show you. He's talking, and then it's black, and then he comes back. Now I also want to add a little bit of dead space at the beginning of my video because I kind of want to have an introduction without him talking yet. So what I'm going to do is select all my clips by just dragging my mouse over them, making sure they're all highlighted, releasing it. Now I'm just going to grab them all and move them down the timeline. And so now I've got dead space here at the beginning. Now, if I've created too much dead space, I can actually trim it. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to want to go back over to this little tool and go back into the select mode. I'm going to zoom in on my timeline by hitting the Apple and plus buttons on my keyboard. So that zooms me in. And then watch this. I'm going to zoom in real close here so you can see. If I hover my cursor over the end of the dead space, see how it looks different? So here's my arrow. Now I get this different feature. I'm going to click down my mouse to select that, and I'm going to drag. So I can very easily trim. And then if I change my mind, I can add more space. It's really simple. Just drag and drop. You know, I think it'll feel really natural to you guys when you start working with this. So to zoom out of my timeline, I'm going to hit Apple and then the minus sign. And here we go. Okay, now we've got our sound bites laid out, but what I want to do next, actually in this particular case, is I want to drop in my music cut, because when I have something personally that has a lot of great B-roll, so supporting video that I want to incorporate into my video, I like to edit to the music. So I like to find a really good cut of music, and then I like to like cut to the beat of that music so the shots change to the timing of the music. It makes it feel like more energetic. So I want to put in my music next so that once I start dropping in all my shots, that they line up with the music and it all like comes together great. So I've got this music cut in here, and you can see this is a music cut because it just shows me what are called wave forms. So these are like, you know, the actual like sound waves that the music makes. So I'm going to grab this entire cut and I'm going to drop it underneath my sound bites. See that? All right, now what I want to do is listen to how this sounds because I want my soundbite to come in at the perfect part of the music. So let's hit play and listen. Okay, so that's kind of the intro of the music. That's where I want the soundbite to come in. So I'm going to drag that dead space, and so the next beat of the music aligns with the soundbite. So let's listen to that. Okay, perfect. Now, obviously, his audio levels are much lower than the music levels. We're going to get to that in a second. But the next thing I want to do is make the cut of music time out perfectly with like the end of my video. So you can see here that this music is much longer than our sound bites, and I don't really want the video to be as long as this music cut. So we're going to trim out the middle and we're going to make the cut sound seamless. I'm going to show you how to do this. So it almost sounds like the music cut was written for this video. So it sounds really custom and polished instead of just having it cut off at the end, instead of having it just fade out in the middle. This is like the professional stuff here. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this music in half. So I'm going to select the clip. It's highlighted in yellow. That's how I know it's selected. And I'm going to go back over to my little tool menu here, and I'm going to hit the blade tool. And now I've got this little razor blade. The blade tool lets you take any clip, video, graphic, music, anything, and then just split it. So then it becomes two separate elements in your timeline. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it right here. And then I'm going to go back up to my menu here. And I'm going to go back to the normal arrow cursor. And I'm going to zoom in on my timeline by hitting Apple Plus. Going back over here. So you can see this is where our split is. And I'm going to trim. Remember, I grab the end of the clip and I get that other little cursor and I keep going. And I just want to keep trimming. Okay, I want the music to go like to here. Get rid of that. All right, now this is where we're going to have to use our ears to figure out the exact spot to cut each of these clips. What I want is for the beat to continue seamlessly so it sounds like the music was cut perfectly for this video. So to do that, we're going to play the music back, count like the 4 beats in music. If you have to snap your fingers, clap your hands, tap your toes, keep on time with the music, and then make a cut at the end of like a beat of 4. So just listen.
It was something that we looked forward to.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so right at that 4, I hit my space bar to stop it, and I'm going to trim. And now this is the trickier side. I'm going to drag this back. And we're going to have to find the downbeat in this music cut. So now I'm going to play that part.
And make sure that
I'm going to drag back a little bit more. Perfect. Okay. Oops. So I'm going to drag this. And now let's listen to it back.
a lot of work. A lot of work.
Okay, we're very close. It's not perfect. I'm going to zoom in even tighter. And this is just a part of trial and error. I'm going to slide this down a few frames, drag. There we go. So did you hear that? It's almost perfect. You know, once we raise his soundbite levels and we lower the music levels to give us like that better balance, you won't even hear that it's cut, even if I'm off a couple frames, but that's how it's done. So now let's focus on those audio levels. Let me show you where your levels should be and then how to adjust them. So on the right side of the screen here at the bottom are our audio meters. They're kind of like a scope to tell us that our levels are either too loud or too quiet or right within range. What you want is you want the green bars to be peaking in like the yellow zone. You don't really want them going up into the red zone. So let's just play and listen to how it sounds. So we're in green, we're safe. Okay, so our levels are fine, but what's not fine is that we can hardly hear him over the music. So let me show you how to make adjustments here. Let's start with the music. Now, I don't want to turn down the music on the entire music track, because we do have some dead space where we're just going to be showing pretty shots, and I want that music to be loud. This is a great cut of music, and I definitely want to like showcase this cut of music in this video. So I only want to turn down the music levels when our interviewee is talking so that we can hear him clearly. But then when he's done talking, I want those music levels to come back up. So let me show you how we make those adjustments. We're going to select our music cut, and we're going to queue up our playhead to right before the soundbite. And then we're going to hit the option button. I'm going to zoom in real tight so you can see there's like a line right here in the middle of our audio. If I hover over it, you can see I get this 0.0 decibels. That's actually my volume control. What I'm going to do is hit option and then click on that line, and I get this little diamond shape. Now I'm going to take my playhead, move down a little further. I'm going to do the same exact thing again, option, and click on the line. And then again at the end of the soundbite, almost at the end, option, click on the line, and then one more time, option, and click on that line. So now what I do is I grab not my first diamond, but my second diamond, and I'm going to mouse over it, click it so it's yellow, and drag that level down to about negative 15. Let's try that. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this one. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to play this back, and you're going to hear what happens.
We're in the penthouse of 600.
So did you hear that the music gets much quieter? Let me play that for you again.
We're in the penthouse of 6.
Okay, so in my mind, I feel like that's a little abrupt. What I'm going to do is grab this second diamond, and I'm going to slide it to the right so it's a more gradual fade out. And then again on this one over here, I'm going to grab it and slide it to the left so it's a more gradual fade in. The other thing I'm going to do is lower, in general, the level of music for the entire track before we get to that fade down. So I'm going to grab this first diamond. It's at 0.0 decibels. I'm going to take it down to like minus, what was that, -6. Let's do the same over here. And now let's listen.
We're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell. To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking forward to.
Okay, perfect. Real quick, I'm just going to add more fades in and fades out for the second soundbite. Now let's listen to how it ends.
And all that coordination was done seamlessly.
Okay, so we've got our audio laid out. Now we're ready for the fun part, which is dropping in our shots. The method of dropping in our B-roll shots is pretty much the same as everything else. We're just going to select in the clip what we want and then drag and drop. So let's start with the first one. I want to start with this building shot, but I can see that it's really long. If I select this clip and then I look down here at the bottom of my event viewer, I can see this clip is 1 minute and 33 seconds long. That's a very long clip. So I want to be really precise with what I take out of this clip. So I'm going to go up to this film strip, and I'm going to slide the slide bar up so I can zoom in a little bit more on that particular video. And so I can really like be precise about what section of the video I'm going to grab. What I want to grab is when we get to like the top of the building. That's the move I want. Okay. Now I'm going to grab from the end. And now these little numbers, you see these little numbers that are showing up here? That tells me how long my clip is. So if I want like 4 seconds, I've got it here. I'm going to grab it with that little hand, and I'm going to drag it on my timeline. Okay, so now that I've dropped in my shot, you can see it's on top of the first line that we created. So it's covering up that dead space. Let's play it and see what we think. Okay, and I actually want the shot to end here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the end of the clip and trim. Now let's pick our next shot. think I would like to use this clip here. And I want to use this part of the clip. And again, I'm making my selection. I'm looking at that number and seeing how long my clip is to give me a good idea of how much I need. So here's 3 seconds. Grab that hand. I'm going to throw it here. So I'm going to extend this shot out to cover our interviewee, and I want to show you what happens here. If I play back the video, we're going to see this shot of the lobby, but we're still going to hear the audio from this soundbite.
We're in the penthouse of 600 Brickell. To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. Penthouse of 600 Brickell. To build out the penthouse.
Do you see how that works? The timeline is like a layer cake. You can keep layering things on top and on top and on top of each other, but everything is still happening underneath. We haven't removed anything. We haven't replaced anything. The sound from that interview is still there, but now we're just seeing something different on top of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop in the rest of my B-roll shots really quick, and then we're going to make more adjustments. We're going to get slightly more advanced, but still way at the beginner level and things that you are capable of doing. So I've laid in all of my shots. Now it's time to look at each individual shots and make adjustments in terms of like cropping, color correction, and anything else. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quick in what's called the inspector window. So let's look at that first shot in our timeline. It's this building. And what you can see is that there are black bars at the top and bottom of the shot because we shot this with our drone, and the drone shoots at a slightly different dimension than the rest of our cameras. I'm going to click on over to the next shot so you can see how that fills the whole window. But if I click back to the building, I've got these black bars top and bottom. So what I need to do is scale up this shot so it fills in our whole window. So I'm going to click this clip, and then let's head on over to what's called the inspector window. It looks like this. This might be one of those windows that's a little intimidating when you look at it because there's a lot of information here. But everything is pretty much named what you would expect it to be. So scale, right? So scale is size. So you shouldn't be intimidated by these terms at all. What I'm going to do is select this clip and let's change the scale. So I can use this slide bar, or I can go in and type in a specific number. But let's just, for the sake of being simple, use the slide bar. This thing's really sensitive, so we're going to go real slow. We're going to click and select that slide bar and then just scale it up until it fills the whole frame. See that? Now it looks just like the rest of the shots. The other thing you might notice is that this shot is not very saturated. That's, again, a setting we have on our drone. So we're going to need to go in and do a little color correcting. So again, I'm still selected on that clip. We're going to go back up to the inspector window, top right. And instead of being on the film strip, I'm going to click this triangle. Now here is where we can do any color corrections. You have 3 options here. You can change the tint, you can change the saturation, or you can change the exposure. So the first thing I know is that this shot needs to be a little more contrasty. So I'm actually going to take the shadows. Okay, that's this little button here. I'm going to pull it down and watch what happens to my clip. See, the blacks get a little darker. And then I'm going to take the mediums, the midtones, and I'll pump those up a little. And I'm going to take the highlights and I'm going to pump those up a little bit too. Then I'm going to head on over to saturation, and I'm going to play with the saturation. So look at these trees in the sky. They don't look very green or blue. Let's crank up the saturation here. And I just play with these little circles until I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. So now there we go. The sky looks really blue here. That looks much better. Now, if I want to see what it looked like before, see this little checkbox? I can turn that off. So that's what our original shot looked like. And that's how it looks now. What a big improvement. So we have made our color correction adjustments. In a normal project, I would go in and do a lot more fine tuning, but really you don't need to do a ton. Now let's play with some special effects. This is where Final Cut gets really fun. So let me show you how to open up your special effects bin. And what we're going to do is draw our attention to the middle right of the screen here. These two little boxes that are kind of intertwined, we're going to click that and look what happens. All of these effects pop up. Now you've got your video effects up top and you've got your audio effects down here. This is where you can change like the tone, the pitch of your audio. These are some more advanced features. I'm not going to play with these today. I'm just going to have some fun with the different filters that we can put over our clips. I'm just going to show you some examples. Let's click this first clip here. And I mean, I have extra stuff in here. I should let you know. If you buy Final Cut, you won't have quite as many options as I do because I buy what are called third-party plugins, which is something that a third company will create effects and sell them to you. You buy them and you install them in your program, and then you have additional features that standard Final Cut doesn't come with. But Final Cut does come with lots and lots of filters. Sometimes I'm just looking for something very specific. And also, I've just been in the game for so long that sometimes I just need different stuff. But don't worry about that today. I'm going to just show you things that I know come with Final Cut. So let's first click on over to blur. This is where you can like blur out a shot if you wanted. So let's just pick this Gaussian blur. And so what I do is if I hover over this option, it shows me what my shot would look like and it just kind of gives me an idea of what I can expect. Here's this interesting focus one. I'm actually going to drag this. So I'm going to click it. I've selected it. I'm holding my finger down and I'm dropping it on my clip. There we go. And so now look, that far couch is in focus and everything else is in soft focus. So now we can make adjustments to this. Let's go back up to our inspector window, click the film strip, and now here you can see the focus filter. That's what we just dropped in. So I can slide up and down all of these different values and I can really customize my look. So every single one of the filters in your bin down here, you can make adjustments in the inspector, or you can just drag and drop and set it. You can get as, complicated or as simple as you want in Final Cut, which is really, really good. I'm actually going to take off this focus filter because I just wanted to show you how the filters worked. And I'm going to actually throw on a different one over our interviewee here. So I'm going to select him in my timeline. I'm going to go down to, where is it? Stylize. And I'm going to select this one called handheld. So what it's going to do, it's going to make it look like instead of my camera being on a tripod, it's going to make it look like I did it handheld. Let me just play it back and show you.
To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking for.
See how much movement he has now?
It was extremely exciting.
Now, again, the handheld has popped up in my inspector and I can adjust how shaky it is. So I could like really pump it up.
Exciting.
I mean, that looks crazy. If we were trying to simulate an earthquake or something, that would actually really come in handy. Or I can adjust like what's called the distance.
Build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking for.
So that's a slower shake, but it's drifting more. So let me play that again for you.
The penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something that we were looking forward to.
It's a little more subtle. I'm kind of a person that I like things to be, typically I like things to be a little bit more subtle than the defaults settings in these filters, but that's just me. So, it's really subjective and it's really just your decision. So now let's add some cool transitions between our clips. So right now you can see they're all just cuts. First, click on over all the way to the right of the screen, this kind of pointed, figure 8. And here are all of your transitions. Again, I have different ones in here that I've purchased and gathered over the years, but there's still tons of them that come with Final Cut. And this menu that we're already on does come with Final Cut. So let's figure out where we want to apply our transition. I'm going to do between these first two shots. So we're going from outside into the inside. So that seems to me, in my opinion, a good place to put a transition. So let's just pick one of these. I'm going to pick the push. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to drop it. Now, what Final Cut does, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's something I don't really like, is that it applies the transitions to both ends of my clip. And in this case, I only want it on one. So to delete the second one is so easy. You're just going to select it in your timeline and then just hit the delete button and it's gone. So now let's play back and look at what that transition looks like. Okay, now we can make adjustments to this transition. I'm going to select the transition and again, head on over to the inspector window. This inspector window is going to be your best friend. And you can see the default direction is bottom to top, but I actually want it to go right to left. So now see what happens. See that? Okay, and then if I want it to happen slower or faster, I'm going to zoom into the timeline so you can really see what we're doing here. We can, again, grab the end of this clip. Everything's the same. It's just dragging, dropping, grabbing, sliding. We can make it bigger, which means that the transition takes longer. So let's watch that. Or we can shrink it down so it happens super fast. So you have a lot of control even with your transitions. So now typically what I like to do is I like to add a fade up and a fade down at the beginning and end of my video. So to do that, let's click on the beginning of this clip and you can either go into the dissolves bin, and the effect you're looking for is called cross dissolve. So I'll show you that. And see it fades up. And then we want it to fade out at the end too, right? So a shortcut is you grab the end of the clip and you're just going to hit Apple T for transition and it defaults to a dissolve. So that's just a little bit of a time saver for you so you don't have to keep going into that bin if all you want is the very standard cross dissolve. All right, we're so close to being done with our video. The only other thing I want to show you is how to add text over a video. So if you wanted someone's name on the video or the name of their company or their title or any other text you want to add, it's really simple to do that. We want to go back over to all the way back to our library bin, and we actually want to select this button here for titles and generators. And the kind of text you're likely looking for is what's called a lower third. That's like someone's name and title. If you want to add people's names on the screen, and these are all kind of pre-built effects. I'm going to take this one that's called Snap. I'm going to drag it and drop it into my timeline. And I'm going to trim it so it fits over just our person, right? We don't want to be showing the name and title over this shot. And so here is what our template looks like. I'm going to play it back so you can see the action it has.
To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting.
Great. Now, if we want to modify this, obviously we don't want it to just say name and description. I'm just going to click in my little canvas window here, name, and I can type in his name and title.
To build out the penthouse was extremely exciting. It was something.
And also in this inspector window, we can change the font. We can change the color of the font. We can give it an outline, a glow, a drop shadow. We can get really detailed in here, or you can just use the templates as they are built. You know, these titles are really dummy proof. They're just drag and drop, and they have great designs. Final Cut has great pre-built elements in it, or you can create your own. And let me just show you how, if you just wanted like simple text, how we do that. So what we're going to do is click on over to a different part of our timeline. And a shortcut to just add text real quick is Control T. And you've got what's called a basic title in here. So now you can see in my window, the word title has shown up. I can customize that by saying conference room. And then I can change the way this looks. I can make it bigger. I can change the alignment. I mean, it's really just like Microsoft Word. And then I can go down here and change the color. I'm going to try to match that yellow bench. And then, of course, I can modify my text so it's just the exact duration of my clip.
Because the end user had such a heavy infrastructure and low voltage, AV, and even
So that's it. We finished editing our video. The last step is super simple exportation. So to export your video, you're going to look at the top right of the screen, this little share icon that you see on your iPhone, like every device. Everything is just so simple in Final Cut, which is what I really love. You can select master file. You can upload right to YouTube. You can upload right to Vimeo. You can upload right to Facebook. You can make it a GIF. There's all sorts of options in here. You can save it anywhere in your computer. It's just like anything else. And then what happens is you'll see at this top icon here, top left of the screen, it's your progress bar. So it's actually not a bar in Apple, it's a wheel. It's like a little pie chart. But if you click on it, you can see more information and get that project bar. And it just tells you how far along it is. All right, guys, that's it. We've made our first Final Cut video. What do you think? Isn't Final Cut so much easier than you thought it was going to be? If you loved this tutorial, I swear you need to check out the Final Cut Rockstar course on my website because you will go from beginner to like level expert so fast. I show you so many different techniques that I use every day in my real life clients. It is such a good investment in your time and your business. It is well worth it, I promise you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more tutorials from me, I'll link to a playlist over here where you can see more. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you again.